After 30 years, the Heisei era has finally come to a close. While it is sad to see such a wonderful era end, we must also look on the bright side of this, as Kamen Rider has certainly transformed and really changed itself throughout this era, and has become very distinct from other tokusatsu because of this era. Another positive to come out of the end of the era is the celebration of Kamen Rider's legacy inside of it, in the form of Kamen Rider Geo and the Heisei Generations Forever movie. After almost 6 months, I'm finally here to review the movie. I've been so excited to see this movie. It seems like they really were going to go all out with the Heisei era celebration aspect of it. So, before we get into it, please be sure to follow me on Twitter at thomasjujube for sneak peeks at upcoming videos, and join the channel Discord server where you can talk to me and other subscribers about anything tokusatsu related. Now, as I said, I've really been looking forward to this one, so let's get right into the review. And I'm just going to say right now, this is probably my favorite Kamen Rider movie. I haven't seen too much of those, but I love this movie. This movie is so cool. Let's get into, I kind of have like a little timeline here, so I'm kind of going to go in the order of stuff that happens in time, not necessarily the order it's presented to us in the movie. So we know at some point in the distant past, Tide just exists and makes another double. Maybe when we get more into Time Jackers in the series, I will make a video on where Tide could have come from, because I feel like Tide is from the future and he came back in time, created another, he went back in time to 2009, created another double, and then goes further back to Kuga, because, so he has like some kind of lackey. So he goes back to 2000 then, after he makes another double, he goes to 2000, and there, obviously this is later on in the movie, so we see that he takes Shingo, he creates another, Tide turns himself into another Kuga, he makes another Deno, by taking Ataru, transforming Ataru into another Deno, which is super cool, and like the suit design and just the idea, it's so cool. And then, as I said, Tide becomes another Kuga, and they all go and crash in 2018, so they skip ahead 18 years. I'm not entirely sure why they go to 2018. I don't think it's ever explicitly said. I just feel like it's probably because the Heisei era ends in 2019, so they're like, let's go to when it's about to end, kind of. Something probably like that, but I don't think they ever explicitly say why 2018. Another thing I want to point out is it's really kind of dumb how they get stuck in 2018. The whole movie, like when you think about it, the whole movie hinges on two very loose like coincidences. The first one is here, where another Denliner just crashes into the Gates time machine, and then that's what lets Shingo escape. That's what lets loose another Deno, another double. Oh, that the alliteration there, I guess that's why they use those two. Anyway, that's like literally all a coincidence, like just that Gates was there with the time machine. Although now that I think of it, he wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Futuros, so maybe it wasn't a coincidence, but I don't know. The second coincidence, I'll just say right now, is another double watch. Literally the whole back half of the movie, like the last hour, I think, only happens because Sogo got another double watch from the one dude. But again, you could say that's because Futuros took Sogo and Ataru. So maybe this is all just Futuros' meddling in the timeline. And because I think his whole goal was to just stop Tide. It's not really explicitly said what Futuros is trying to do, but I'm pretty sure it's just stopping Tide and returning Shingo to the proper time. So let's just assume it's to stop Tide and return Shingo. So I guess you could say these are coincidences, because these are kind of only happening because of Futuros messing with Kamen Riders in this world. But I'm going off on a tangent. So the 2018 segment is where we spend most of the movie, or a good chunk of it at least, maybe not most of it. We get Sogo and Build. I just want to say it's fantastic to see the Build cast again. As I said many times, I love Kamen Rider Build. That's probably my favorite cast in all of Tokusatsu, or at least Kamen Rider. Sogo, I love Sogo and Ryuga, so it's great to see those guys had a lot of screen time and a lot of stuff to do in this movie. So, anyway, Shingo escapes when they crash in the another denliner. We get another double show up. We get Build and Cross. They find that it's kind of like, if you've seen some of my other videos, you would know I love Avengers Infinity War. This movie kind of reminds me of that, where we have like our different kind of teams of characters, and they all kind of switch and interact with each other. It's really, really cool. So it's kind of all based around Shingo. We need to find Shingo, and he's just running around, so that's kind of funny. And I like the little hints they drop as to where Shingo is actually from, because I thought Shingo was just kind of some kid that Tide knows, and he's like pretending to be a kid, kind of like Animus from Wild Force. But it is just a kid, but he's a singularity point, so that's kind of cool. So they find Ataru at one point as well, and we see that Ataru is under the influence of an Imagine, sort of. So I haven't seen Den-O, but I know how the Imagine work. So he's currently working through a contract with Futuros, and then at some point then he's let out of, or they complete the contract, which gives Futuros his full form. And again, I haven't seen Den-O, so it's a little confusing to me, but that's just my own fault since I don't really know the Imagine statistics. Not statistics. It's kind of the way that works with the Imagine. So, but I mean, it's simple enough that I could pretty much understand it. So Futuros is creating these riders in the real world. So they're essentially in the real world where Kamen Rider is a show, because Kuga would never exist as an actual rider. So because of that, Futuros, his contract with Ataru is to create these real riders, and the way I perceived it is more not like he's creating them, but more like he's lifting them from their reality. Since we know there's like, an actual kind of Kamen Rider reality where you have all the riders, I kind of perceived it more as Futuros lifting these riders from that reality to the actual reality. But because there's so many riders he has to lift, every so often it like kind of gives, so Misora one second recognizes Ryuga, and another it switches off, and now she's just a character. Now she's just a person in this world that just thinks is Misora, or was Misora, and now is not. So like when we see Rogue is like walking around probably at some point, and all of a sudden now he's lifted into the real world where he thinks he's Rogue, and then at a certain point Futuros' power gives on Rogue, and now he's just a person in this world that kind of was lifted from the other world, so he's kind of stuck, I guess. So that's maybe a little dark. But also, this is where, like, my other complaint with the film. If this is a world where there's no Kamen Riders, why is an Imagine supposed to exist? I guess it could also be because of Den-O being a singularity point. Maybe that allows Imagine to exist. So, I don't know. That's something else I thought was a little strange. So eventually, Tide recaptures Shingo and uses him to make another Den-O tower. They never really give it a name. And I also thought it's really interesting that he uses another Den-O for like the basis of all his gear, or not the gear, but like of all the equipment, like the another denliner, the tower. But like another Den-O was like not really made until he already became another Kuga. So that's really strange. And there's a hell of a lot of another riders in this, if we're being honest. So that's pretty cool as well. So they make the another Den-O tower, which actually has the Futo tower, I believe, as well. So that kind of ties it in. So then the riders, obviously, they're trying to fight this thing, but Futuros' power is giving, so they're starting to disappear. And eventually, Ataru accepts there are no Kamen Riders. Futuros' contract is finished, and he goes back to 2000, which is where we saw him earlier in the timeline, I guess. And then Build, Sogo, and I assume all the other riders are then sent back to their timeline, but they know of what happened. So Sento goes and finds Sogo. They use the another double watch to get back and maybe bring everyone else back. Waz gets taken with them, so I feel like maybe they brought, Ryuga ended up back as well. So yeah, I guess it was just like everyone who was lifted to this other world was lifted back to the world by using the double watch. And it's strange it's Double, of all things. Like, I like Double. I haven't seen all of Double, but I like it. It's a little bit of a strange choice, not like Decade, but I guess they needed that in the show. I don't know, a bit strange choices with, like, why we chose certain writers for the movie, but it's fine, it all works. So they get sent back to the real world. We get a weird scene where Waz uses the Gaia memory library. I have a theory on this. We have no reason to assume he's never been using it. Like, maybe that's how Waz gets his information on the timeline and stuff. It's just like, for some strange reason, in this movie, they decided to show us that actually happening in the Gaia library. But maybe he's always been able to do this. That's my theory. So they go back to 2000. We get the whole thing I explained earlier. And then when they're going back to 2018, they get a little help from the denliner. So when they get back to 2018, we have Build and Cross fighting off monsters, fighting off another double, and then I believe they're about to take on so it's Sogo and Gates fighting another Deno, and at this point now they finally figured out another Deno is Ataru. They're with Futuros as well. So they're about to start fighting another Deno, and then they get, bam, I don't know where they go. Again, it's probably a Deno thing. They get taken to another place, and we get Deno. We get a Kamen Rider Deno, Momotaro's. Really cool scene. I pretty much like everything about the scene. We even get all the Imagine kind of coming, so that's really cool. It just makes me a little confused why there's a Deno tribute coming in a few weeks for Kamen Rider Geo, when like this is literally like 10 minutes of like just Deno in Kamen Rider Geo. It's probably because they didn't get the watch. And the reason I think it's weird we're getting a Deno tribute is because they literally like add on this like weird extra segment where we get all the Imagine just like yelling at each other, which is probably a thing that happens in Deno a lot, and I really enjoyed it. But I felt like it went on for way too long. Like there's like every time they like kind of made a joke, I'm like, oh, this is where we're gonna end, and it kept going, and then I was like, oh, this is where it's gonna end, and it kept going. So it was a bit weird how long it went on for, but I thought that scene was fine. And also what's important about this scene is it teaches, I think it's Utaros and Ryutaro, he teaches our main riders in this movie that like the Kamen Riders will live on even if they're memories. And that's what Ataru says once they break him out of another Deno and they take him back to the another Deno tower. He realizes that like even if they're not quote unquote real, they are still real to us, because as long as we remember them, they will exist. And that right there is kind of what I really like about the movie. It totally feels like a movie designed for Kamen Rider fans. Like this was really, like especially that room of Kamen Rider toys, like this was designed for Rider fans. Toei probably doesn't know a lot about us fans here in America or outside Japan, but it was kind of nice that even if you don't live in Japan, you could really connect with the movie just because of its connections to Kamen Rider fans in general. So that was really fantastic, and I really liked that. So because of the realization that the memories will keep Kamen Riders living on, we get probably the most fantastic scene in all of Kamen Rider, where every Heisei Rider just appears because of the people remembering the riders. I assume, like this is more headcanon, but I'm pretty sure it's Futuros again. Now he has like more power because he's a complete and Imagine. That's just my headcanon. But all the Heisei Riders show up. It's just so cool. It's like 5 minutes of just like Heisei Rider appearing in fighting action. Beautiful. Then we get Geo. He uses his double watch finally, and he begins fighting another double, defeats another double. One thing I would like to point out is in my ranking in my ranking of art rider time video, I put the double armor pretty high up. I still like the double armor visually, but when it's fighting, those shoulder pads are really too big. In action, this might be one of the few Kamen Rider suits that looks better still than it does in action. So just like to point that out. So another double is defeated. So now all that's left is another Kuga. So Tide becomes another Kuga, and we get the Kuga armor used. It's a bit sad that it's only used for like 2 seconds in the time machine. So I mean it is a giant CGI monster, so they probably weren't gonna have an actual fight scene, but it's kind of disappointing that it's only using the time machine and then for like the 2 seconds in like the Hibiki arc, because it was the last episode of the Heisei Era. So I don't know, that's just a small nitpick. I do think it's really cool that we got a lot of time machine action in this, because there was like that one segment in the O's arc and I love that, and then it never happened again. So cool to see it in this movie though. And also like Sento in the time machine, he's like, genius finishes this in a time machine, best so much. That kind of scares me what Sento would do if he actually had a time machine. So we'll just leave that. They defeat another Kuga, and then like immediately he comes back as another ultimate Kuga, or is it ultimate another Kuga? Someone let me know the phrasing down in the comments. But he uses Shingo's power, or Shingo's power as a singularity point. I think the idea is Shingo as a singularity point would never know if Kamen Rider stuck in that kind of capsule. So using this like another rider that eliminates all Kamen Rider, and then using a boy who never knows about Kamen Rider kind of combined creates an ultimate Kuga. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but it's a little bit not clear. Could be because the subs I was using were broken, and I was like, wait, why is that? It didn't really say what was going on, so I had to look somewhere else just to kind of get some clarification on that. So Ultimate Kuga goes to, I believe, a Toei quarry, and then we get all the Heisei riders show up, all this bike action, total Kamen Rider bike action. One thing that's small that I would like to point out is when Exade rides in with his bike, they play the Baxo bike theme, and they actually play the Gashat noise, so thank you for paying attention with my beautiful Exade Toei. They actually even do that when he does the rider kick. They have the mighty critical strike, the little banner thing. That's really cool, little attention to the detail. This totally felt like a tribute for all the riders, which is great. So speaking of the rider kick, we get every single Kamen Rider do their signature rider kick and defeats another Kuga. It's a really drawn out scene, which sounds like a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's really great. And finally defeats another Kuga. Shingo is like, the Kamen Riders, and it's literally all the Kamen Riders he will have to wait and watch until when he grows up, since he gets sent back to 2000. It kind of makes me a little sad. Not sad, just like a little nitpick. I hope he wasn't looking at Build and is like, I can't wait to watch his show, and he has to wait like 17 years, so maybe that's a little sad. But anyway, oh my god. Alright, we're gonna go off on a tangent here. If this kid at some point is like, I'm gonna make YouTube videos and I'm gonna predict the next Kamen Rider, he could literally just like totally hit the nail on the head because he's seen all the future Kamen Riders for the next 20 years. Just wanted to throw that out there, a little bit of a funny thing. So we get a mirror of the first scene in the first scene of the whole movie, where we get Ataru looking. It's like a slideshow of Ataru growing up and loving Kamen Rider, and we get a mirror of that at the end, where now he's with his older brother Shingo, and I saw that and I was like, that warms my heart. That really did. So at the end of the movie, we get Sogo and Build back together in the main timeline, and they kind of just say bye to each other. That's about it. And then we get the credits, and then that's the end of the movie. So there's no mid-credit scene too. I was expecting one. There's no mid-credit scene, so like, as if this movie wasn't like Avengers Endgame enough, they don't have a mid-credit scene because they don't want to tease anything, because this was like a solid ending to the Heisei era, kind of in general. So that's really cool. One thing I would like to point out, I've not seen Cross New World yet. That is a spoiler for something. But I just want to say that, like, when the riders are lifted into our world, the real world, Build and Cross are like acting as if they're in the new world. So I think they were lifted straight from their new world, and Sogo and probably the other Kamen Riders are lifted from their world. And I'm pretty sure that then when they return, so they're lifted, like, basically all the Kamen Riders are lifted from their world. Sento and Build, Sento is Build, Sento and Ryuga are lifted from the new world, but then they're in the main world. But then when they're sent back, they're all sent back to the main Kamen Rider timeline and back and forth. So Sento and Ryuga are like stuck in another new world, but it shouldn't be any different from the new world they were in. So I'm pretty sure Cross New World takes place in the main Kamen Rider timeline. That's my kind of headcanon. That's what I'm thinking. I think it's kind of saying something if a movie gives a lot of room for theories and ideas. So maybe that says something to the quality of the film, but I personally enjoyed it, and I think it's amazing. This is certainly a love letter to the Heisei era, and I think it's a great one at that. Certainly wrapped with a beautiful bow. So I thought Heisei Generations Forever was amazing. Let me know what you thought about the Heisei era's grand finale down in the comment section, and also don't forget to check out some of my other Kamen Rider and Tokusatsu videos on the channel. And with Gio's movie actually being so great, I wonder how well the series got after it debuted. Let me check that. Oh, the Ghost tribute. Well, people don't like Ghost, but